H-Town, hold it down. Welcome into Texans Today. I am Will Scott. On today's show, we're talking about 5 Texans free agent targets. Wait for it. Not named DeAndre Hopkins. I know we've talked about D-Hop a lot in the last week as he has been linked to the Texans. We're not talking about D-Hop today. We're going to talk about 5 other guys that the Texans might target here post-June 1. Who do you want the Texans to sign? This is a football team that's gotten a lot better this offseason, but can continue to add talent. Nick Caserio's done a good job, but I'm sure he's still interested in maybe bringing some guys in. Who do you want the Texans to sign? Let me know down in the comments section. It's the pinned comment, so just reply to it when you get a second during today's show. We'll begin with number 5, Jadeveon Clowney, the former Houston Texan, played with the Texans for 5 years after he was the number 1 overall pick in 2014. Now he was traded from the Texans to the Seahawks in 2019. He said in an interview with Mark Berman that his agent has talked with the Texans this offseason. Here is what he said about possibly returning to the Texans. It would be nice. All my family is here, friends here, the guys I work out with can help me take care of my body a lot better than being right up under them. You never know. You never know what will happen. You never know what's in front of you. So Jadeveon Clowney appears to be at least intrigued by the idea of a reunion with Houston Texans. And D'Amico Ryans was asked about that. He said they're never going to rule out signing anybody. So we'll see if they opt to bring Jadeveon Clowney back, who is still looking for a new home in NFL free agency. Now, the numbers were really good in his first year in Cleveland, 2021. I think he proved in that season that he still has a lot left in the tank. 9 sacks, 37 tackles, 11 tackles for loss. But that next season, this past season, in 2022 with Cleveland, 12 games, 28 tackles, 2 sacks. The numbers were down. It didn't end super great with Cleveland. He criticized the organization for saying they were padding Myles Garrett's stats. So he is still looking for a new home. Maybe Houston will be an option, and he can get back to those numbers we saw in 2021. Should the Texans bring back Jadeveon Clowney? Type Y for yes or type N for no down in the comments section. Go down in the comments section. Let me know. Now, Jadeveon did not overlap with D'Amico Ryans like J.J. Watt did, but still, D'Amico, I'm sure, knows a decent amount about Clowney, his background. Maybe he would be interested in bringing Clowney back to Houston because it does appear that Clowney might have interest in coming back to the 7-1-3. Melvin Ingram, how about this name? The former Miami Dolphin, also former Chief, former Steeler. He's been in the league a long, long time. Here's what he did in Miami last season. I thought he was pretty good for the Dolphins. Is kind of a depth piece on that Dolphins defense. 22 tackles, 6 sacks. Actually ranked second on the Dolphins in sacks. 10 QB hits, 2 forced fumble recoveries, I should say, in Miami last season. I think there's a lot of people that might think, man, Melvin's been around a while. He's probably washed. As a guy that watched a lot of the Dolphins last year, I can promise you Melvin Ingram is far from washed. He was a good role player as kind of a backup linebacker on the Dolphins last year. Started 3 games, played in all 17 games. And that's really what you look for when you're thinking about signing some older guys. What is their durability? Can they still go out and play a lot? He played in all 17 games for the Dolphins last year, ranked second on the team in 6 sacks. I think Melvin Ingram is still a good player and would make this Texans defense even better. I still think you need more depth at linebacker and the defensive line. He's versatile. He can play either position there. Be sure to subscribe for all the latest rumors, news, and analysis on your Houston Texans. Join the Texans fam today by subscribing to the channel. We're going to continue to have you covered leading up to the 2023 season. Akiem Hicks is someone else that a lot of people might think is washed, but I still think he can be a pretty good player for you. And when you look at this Texans defensive line, I still think it needs more depth. Hicks played last season in Tampa Bay. Before that, he was in Chicago a long time, kind of similar to Melvin Ingram, has been in the league a long time. Taking a look at the defensive line depth chart, you could slot him behind Sheldon Rankins or Malik Collins and get him involved as a backup defensive tackle on this team. Plus, Hicks would be really, really cheap. He's aging. He's still looking for a new home. I don't think he's had a whole lot of interest in free agency. I don't think you would have to spend much to get Akiem Hicks to Houston. BetUS making sure you don't overspend because they're giving you a 125% deposit bonus. If you put $100 into your account, you're going to start with $225. It's a great deal. Go and take advantage. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code chat125. Got Game 3 of the NBA Finals on Wednesday night. The Rockets are going to be in this next year, but until then, we got to bet on the Nuggets and Heat. Producer Jeff Cooperstein is laughing. The Mavericks are going to be in shambles when they don't get LeBron James like all the Mavs fans think they're going to thinks is going to happen after today's Shams report. The Rockets will be here next year. Right now, it's the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat. The Nuggets -2.5. The Heat 214.5. You can go bet on the game, and they have a lot of cool props on there as well. Finals MVP. I bet on Tyler Hero to win the Finals MVP. He might not even play, so that's not good. Also, you can bet on, a lot of other sports. MLB, go bet on the Stros. The Stros are surprisingly an underdog tonight, so you can go bet on all your favorite sports at BetUS. Promo code chat125, chatsports.com/bet. Cameron Dantzler is the next name here, and I somewhat got clowned in the Chat Sports office for putting him on my list because some people just don't think this guy is very good. I think that he can be a decent option here at corner if you're the Texans. 149 tackles, 6 tackles for loss through 3 years, 3 interceptions, 17 pass breakups in 3 years in Minnesota. So, interesting situation here with Dantzler. He was cut by the Vikings in March, then immediately picked up by the Commanders. Got a lot of interest from around the league, went to Washington. But he was waived by the Commanders last week after week 1 of OTAs. They did draft 2 corners. They have some depth there, so maybe that's why they cut him. Just 24 years old. That's what I like about Dantzler. He still has potential to be good in this league. Should the Texans add another corner, type A for add or type D for don't, down in the comment section. I'll say this, when you're talking about some options, you can go with a younger guy like Dantzler or a more veteran piece like Marcus Peters, for example. But I like Dantzler because he's young. Should the Texans add another corner, A for add or D for don't? Frank Clark, number 1 on my list. Now, this would be a surprising move if the Texans made it. I think a lot of people believe Frank Clark is going to go to a contender. Maybe he stays in Kansas City. I'm not sure. But Frank Clark is a phenomenal player. You look at the numbers year after year. He continues to be really, really good along any defensive line. 39 tackles, 5 sacks, 8 tackles for loss last season with the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Now, would Frank Clark be interested in the Texans? Probably not, because he's spent the last 4 years in Kansas City. He's won 2 Super Bowls. He's enjoyed playing on a contender. I think he'd be interested in joining a contender, and the Texans are not there yet. But still, I think the Texans should at least try to get Frank Clark on the phone. Nobody expected them to sign Dalton Schultz. Nobody expected them to sign Devin Singletary. So Nick Caserio has certainly made some surprising moves in free agency this offseason. Maybe Frank Clark can be next because you can afford him. You have a lot of cap space still to play around with. If you maybe overpay a little bit for Frank Clark, which the Texans have the money, I don't mind doing that to add another guy to this defense that can be really good along the defensive line. I would be willing to spend what it takes to get Frank Clark to H-Town, or at least get him to consider coming to Houston. Should the Texans sign Frank Clark? S for sign, P for pass. Down in the comments section, go down, let me know, should the Texans sign Frank Clark? Taking a look at my 5 names here, Jadeveon Clowney. Out of all these 5, I believe he's the most realistic name. Melvin Ingram, Akiem Hicks, Cam Dantzler, and Frank Clark. Those are my 5 free agent targets, not named DeAndre Hopkins. If the Texans make a move, we're certainly going to have you guys covered, so be sure to subscribe to the channel.